Hi, my name is Leila Atchison.
Hi, my
I'm
name's Eli Ferraris.
I'm Natasha Satch.
I'm Luis Aparicio.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Torres.
And this is our project for Literature 239.
Oh boy. So our first two articles on mine. For the translation, what I saw with mine was that it first started off with a letter not long since written to the publisher by an experienced person residing in Amsterdam, containing a true description of Nova Zembla, together with an intimation of the advantage of its shape and position. What I read that was, now I translated it was a letter not long since written to the publisher to just be an article that was written by an expert in Amsterdam to shorten it, and the words of containing a true description of Nova Zembla, and together with intimation, I translated to that it just contains a detailed description of the Nova Zembla fire, which I searched up what was a Nova Zembla in the first place, and then translated it further on to be just with the facts on the advantages, particular shape and position. Next part was a way of extracting a volatile salt straight out of vegetables, yada yada. And I translated all of that into being Dr. Daniel Cox's description of providing a method of extracting volatile salts and nutrients is what I translated spirits to be, and shortened down the intimated in num 100 page 7002 as just page 7003 section 100. Further on, the words of an observation of Dr. Janssens of Pomfret communicated by him to Mr. Lister and so on are translated into just an observation by the doctor about gold stones inside animals, and that he described it to Mr. Lister, as well as afterwards having his observation sent to the publisher. My next translation, I just shortened the extracts of two letters into just two excerpts from two articles written by the doctors or the one researcher, Christopher Sandys, about the origin of pearls. After that, I translated for the next excerpt an account of some books to just be taken from the pages of some books given to the Royal Society, which I got from just it being an account of some books, and then so on, just translating the rest of that excerpt into just being Robert Hooke's attempt to prove Earth's motion, describing the effectiveness of military medicine by Raymondus Mindorus, and also put into the 30th edition of the Medical Physical Journal. For the second translation, I saw this as just Mr. Leonak's opinions about the idea of compression of air, received from him on August 15, 1673. And with this, I just translated considerations and touching the compression of air into just opinions and the idea. Next after that is more microscopical observations by the same M. Levonek and promised in number 97 of these tracks. And I translated that into just being that Leeuwenhoek just also provided some microscopical observations, which are shown on page 97, and that it was also detailed in the same letter, as well as another one on April 7th of the next year. Next, the original words just said Sir Samuel Morland's undertaking for raising water, translated to just be Sir Samuel's understanding and comments of floods, is what I translated raising of water to. A note about some unusual diamonds is self-explanatory. Different comments on different shaped diamonds and minerals. And after that is words on a certain phenomenon seen by Monsieur Havelas, and it being not far from Marienburg in Borussia, about the sun a little before his setting and the moon's conjunction and the eclipse, which was yet unseen by him. This I translated into just a little ways away from Marienburg, Borussia, that Havelis described an early sunset, translating a sun a little before his setting, which would be just an early sunset, which causes the moon to appear in the sky along with the sun, and that he's just described the events of a solar eclipse that he had not physically seen yet, but most likely just guessed on. After that is the literal wording of an extract of Monsieur Havelis' letter lately written to the publisher concerning the famous Kepler's manuscripts, together with consideration of his, about the use of telescopic sights and astronomical observations. And this I translated into it just being that Havelis also discussed and commented on Kepler's findings, and with the help of the Royal Society, added to the discussion about the usefulness of telescopes and observations of space. After that, the last words were just an account of some books, which then again, which the translation would just be from our books or taken from the books, pages from the books of the Royal Society. That Laponia by Johannes Jeffrey, the true English interest or infallible advance of this nation to infinite wealth and greatness, trade and populacy, with employment and preferment to all persons by Cairo Raynal. England's improvement revived in husbandry trade by the land and by sea by John Smith. And I translated to just be that from the books were different topics. One would just be that the interests of the English in their nation studied by Johannes. The other one would be the comments on the English nation's ability of prosperity and equality of wealth by Carew, and then England's advance in relationships and trade by John Smith. And then the last words were an advertisement about a new sold of globes, rectified translated to just be a short blurb on the correcting of globes. And this I classified as just being that these both articles share that it speaks in examples of books in both from the Royal Society, that either one or both feature an observation about a mineral, rock, plant, or about space, and then it takes in submissions from outside researchers and scientists, and the Royal Society helps them. And those are my two articles.
I did the philosophical transactions of Article 103 and 104. Please excuse me if I butcher these names, but the first article from page 103 was an account of phone books of the excellency and grounds of the mechanical hypothesis proposed by RBE. I translated that into the books of outstanding grounds of the automatic theory. The second one from Article 103 was Mr. John Smith, England's Improvement Revived, translated into England's Development brought back into an essay of cultivation and trade. And the third one from Article 103 was Davidus van der Becke, Experimenta, translated into Experiments and Reflection, approximately Doctor of Natural Sciences. And from the philosophical transactions of 104, the first one that I translated was Observations touching the Torricellian experiment and the various solutions of the fame, especially concerning the weight and spring of air. I translated that into the Observations touching the Italian physics experiments in the large amount of answers of the recognized. The second one from that one was a mathematical compendium collected out of the papers of Sir Jonas Moore by Nicholas Stephen Fawn, translated into a collection of math. The third one was Icones and Descriptiones, translated into Symbols and Descriptions. And the fourth one was Navigation and Commerce, the original and Progress by J. Evelyn, translated into Navigating and Exchanging. And the classifications that I got from both of these articles, which was 103 and 104, was both articles were talking about alchemy and natural substances such as sulfuric acid, salt water, and metals. The second was observations and experiments. The third one was math. The fourth one was England's development. And the last one was natural science. And that's what I got from both of the articles that I classified.
So I did philosophical transactions 105 and 106. For 105, it contained excerpts from two letters. Christian Huygens de Zichem, I think it's pronounced, who talk about his thoughts on Hooke's observation of the Earth's motion. And then Signor Caffini, who was concerned on fame arguments. Then there was directions on how to prepare and tan leather, according to Charles Howard and approved by the masters of the craft. Then we had extracts from Mr. Lester about snails, along with details about said snails. We also had information regarding women aged 60 plus giving sucks to small children. There were two books. One of them about the nature of spiritual animals and the nature of animals. And then the second one was of the human body and understanding the anatomy of the human body. And then for philosophical transaction 106, it included microscopical observations from a Mr. Leeuwenhoek about bodily fluids, the brain, bones, and milk. That was communicated through two letters, a case of dropsy being mistaken for gravidation in young women, and then three books of De Secretoni Animali Cogies, which is congelation in animals, Selectoral Geometrica, which was about geometry, and then Logica 5, Aristogati, I am butchering these words, but it was logic proposals. And then the classifications I did was current events. They always tried connecting it to like certain current events that were happening during it. The book publications always seem to be about human anatomy or animal anatomy. And then conversational is that the letters are always like conversational in nature.
I'm Natasha Satch, and I translated the title sections for 107 and 108. Number 7 was a body of military medicines experimented by Raymundus Minderus NC, and then I translated it to be a collection of experimental military drugs developed by Raymundus Minderus and Co. And then number 8, Ephemerida Medico Physicum, Germany, Annus Tertius, and then I translated it to be the third year of the Medical Physician Journal of Germany. And then for my classifications, there's a lot of observing, experimenting done in each section. Discoveries are frequently discussed. Elements of nature, lots of talk about plants, air, water, fire, the sun, and the moon. And then advancements on sciences and arts, human anatomy, and then geography.
I'm Vanessa, and I was responsible for philosophical transactions number 9 and 10. For number 9, I said that it talked about observation. It was an observation of a strange lake and how it caused uncontrollable bleeding to a child, along with the voyages of this lake and techniques on refining metals. It included a narrative of some observations of an account of 3 books. The 3 books, for the first one, I translated it to a debate presented to the Royal Society regarding the duplicate parts in several important circumstances. And book 1 also included a new hypothesis of elastic or spring bodies that was written by William Petty. Book 2 was The Art of Metals. It included how to refine silver by quicksilver, some techniques that were added on by Alonzo Barba and Edward, Earl of Sandwich, for a better performance when refining silver. And lastly, for book 3, I said that it was criticism of the first part of the celestial machine of the astronomer Johannes Hevelius, and together with an explanation from Robert Hooke about some instruments. As for philosophical transaction number 10, I said it was a letter from Frank Linus to a friend in London, where Frank criticizes Mr. Isaac Newton's theory of light and colors. It also was an account of 3 books. Book number 1, I translated to Suspicions about the quality of air, with additional information on celestial magnets. Book 2, Criticism on Mr. Hobbes' problem of space. And book 3 consisted of a debate of the cause of attraction, bisection by Robert Boyle. My classifications, I said that both articles criticized others' ideas as well as debated the others' ideas, talked about space observations, and it taught how to refine metals, specifically silver.
So that's it for our philosophical transactions. And now we're going to move on to the classification table.
I think one classification that could work is space, because I believe Vanessa and I think there was maybe one other that mentioned space. So I think that could be a common classification.
Probably another one would be all the book publications that were probably if almost all, if not all of them, were talking about different books or an account of some books. You can put that in there as well.
Another classification could be based on alchemy, because I believe from my articles that I translated and 2 other people, they were talking about minerals and rocks. So I think that could be another one possibly.
You could probably do a classification on metal as well, since I see that Vanessa and I believe there was another one that talks about metallurgy.
You said metal, like metal?
Yes.
I think the last one can be plants, because I think there's a couple that talk about like plants and things like that as well.
Also, like other elements like water and like air and fire and stuff.
Elements could fall under alchemy, because alchemy does deal with the interaction between elements.
Oh, okay.
I'd say leave that last. The last classification that we have, 2 plants. Or if not, observations in general.
And Lewis will be doing the philosophical transaction of article number 111.
So before the wrap up of anything of this, we do have our last transaction, as Leila said, 11, which was an account of the late eclipse of the moon made in London, Paris, and we all worked in this together and translated onto that the Pallas Bironius answers to the philosophical queries of Iceland that differs rural and oceanomical inquiries recommended to observation and trial, and with the letter excerpt from Dr. Willis to Monsieur Heverless talking about divisions by decimals. Now, in the first book, we all translated this into that some physical theological considerations about the possibility of resurrection by Robert Boyle. In the second book, that where, offering their Platon by Abraham Munting. And the third book talked about the prevention of poverty, showing the cases of decay, showing the cause of decay of trade, fall of land, and wants of money, with expedients for remedying the same and bringing the kingdom to an imminent degree of riches prosperity by Rich Haynes.
So that's about it for our project. As we stated before, we talked about our classifications, which is space and astronomy, book and book publishing, alchemy, and metal. And for our examples, they will be shown in the document that we provide and submit. So thank you for listening to our group meeting. Have a good day.